Hi, everybody. This is Daniel Mintz. I'm Looker's Chief Data Evangelist. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Welcome to Looker 6 webinar. I'm going to get started right on time because we have a lot to get through. There's a lot going on in Looker 6. I'm not going to get to nearly all of it, but I just want to give you a taste of sort of what is in Looker 6, what's coming, and as well as demo a few of those features and then also take your questions. So I will take questions at the end, but you should feel free to enter those questions at any time in the question and answer box. So let's dive right in. So Looker 6 is really a platform for data. That's what Looker is focused on. That's what we're trying to accomplish, and that's the direction we're moving with Looker 6, and we'll continue to move. And what we mean by that is that the platform provides a common surface, a common way to access your data that ensures that whoever is accessing your data, however they're accessing your data, wherever they're accessing your data, it's always going to have the same meaning, the same results. And by presenting a common surface that covers all of your different data sources, what that means is that it doesn't matter if your data sources change, if your data sources grow, if you buy a new data warehouse, if you upgrade to the latest version. It doesn't matter if somebody invents a new wearable that can access data, and you want to put your data in on that wearable on Google Glass 2 or whatever. It means that both the things above and the things below that common surface can change and grow and evolve, but that common surface remains constant, and it really gives you the ability to sort of dependably build on that common surface and know that you're going to be future-proof. So that's kind of what we are aiming for, what we're thinking about as we build Looker and build Looker to the future. But I'm going to dive into the specifics because I know that analysts and data people love to get into the specifics. So one of the big things that we're thinking about not just is providing that comprehensive service, common surface for data, but also making sure that all the things that surround that make it easy for you to build on and use Looker. So, that means comprehensive services that make it a real pleasure to own Looker. It means giving you all of the tools that you need to extend Looker. And it means that you can use our applications. And I'll talk a little bit more about where that's going beyond just our business intelligence application, or yours. You can build your own applications on top of it. So with that sort of overview, let me dive into those features. So one of the big things that we're focusing on in Looker 6 is being smarter about the use of color. Color is an incredibly powerful tool for communicating to users what the data means, and that's really what we're interested in is understanding what the data means. And so we're doing a lot of things to make Looker look better, to make it easier to use, to make it easier to understand what that data in Looker is trying to tell you. And so things like making brand new palettes, presenting you with brand new color palettes, and making it clear sort of when and how to use categorical palettes, sequential palettes, divergent palettes, because those are three sort of palette types that really make sense with different kinds of data. So to sort of give you a clear example of what I mean, you could have this table of numbers, not terribly informative, I would say, in its current state. But you could, obviously use color to highlight, the outlier values. So we can see, very clearly that most of the values cluster down towards the 0, but some of them go up to a little bit above 5, and those are highlighted clearly by the color. But, maybe this isn't actually how we want to communicate that. Maybe, we want to do this to have a sort of middle range and call that out so we can see the lows, the middles, and the highs. Maybe we want to reverse that color scale and highlight the reds and have those low numbers, at 0 and pink as our middle. And what we're doing here is just playing with the color ramp, playing with the color range and how those palettes are drawn. And Looker has been able to do this, but we're building a lot more flexibility around this so that, you're not just given a sort of a middle, and a max and have to take those, but rather you get control over sort of how those are defined, where those are defined, how you deal with the real outlier values. If you want to have a middle value that for your color ramp that's not actually the middle value of your data. That's coming very soon. And then, a whole new look for Looker with brand new palettes, so that Looker really pops and grabs people's attention and communicates clearly. So these are just some of the new palettes that are coming in Looker 6. And I'll just scroll through them. And so to summarize, what we're doing on color, we're being smarter about how we apply color. We're giving you more selection sort of built into the product. We're getting a lot smarter about using heuristics from the data and how the data is structured, what it means, how much of it is, what shape it is, to be smarter about what defaults we use, so that when you open the visualization panel and the first visualization you see is going to be smarter about what that visualization looks like, how it's customized, what colors it's using, and even what visualization type it is based on what the data looks like. We're giving you more customization on how the values map to the colors. And then, as I said, a whole new range of color palettes. So that's one of the big changes that you'll notice immediately in Looker 6. Another thing is giving you a lot more visualization choice and freedom in sort of how you display your data. So if you want to do mixed graphs showing trend lines and bar graphs, you'll be able to do that in Looker 6. Giving you the ability to size by and color by, which it looks like didn't quite convert right in this slide, but giving you the ability to size by and color by values in Looker. So a lot more on that sort of visual side. Speaking of visuals, another big thing that's coming in Looker 6 is the ability to better match your brand. And this is specifically focused on people who are using Powered by Looker, our embedded analytic solution. So, normally out of the box, if you build a dashboard, you can do some customization of what that looks like, but it's somewhat limited. And with Looker 6, your range of options for customizing this in terms of color, look, feel, fonts will really expand, so that if you want your dashboard to look like this, that's great. You can do that. If you want to make it look just like your application that you're integrating it in, here's our sample application Fashionly. You can do that, so that really matches that. If your brand style guidelines call for the use of wingdings, I don't know why they would, but if they do, you can do that. So a lot more customization ability, particularly in the embedded space, and I'll show that live in a couple of minutes. So another thing that we're focused on is making sure that the data that you're accessing in Looker looks good everywhere. So obviously, most people are accessing Looker most of the time through their browser, and we want to make sure that Looker looks great there. But we also want to make sure that it looks particularly good in email, because we're seeing more and more data delivery. That's something that's really core to Looker's value, is making it easy to put data in people's hands without making them log in. And we want to make sure that Looker looks great in their email. We want to make sure that it looks great on mobile. And we want to make sure that it even looks great if you're printing it out. And so with Looker 6, there are a number of improvements. We actually revamped the whole rendering engine. You may not notice the improvements there unless you're rendering a lot. But that gives us more speed. It gives us more flexibility going forward. It allows us to have feature-rich PDFs, so that if you're searching a PDF, that's all going to work. That text rendering is going to allow you to do searching. It's going to make them more printable and give you more customization and more flexibility when you're actually printing them out. So lots of improvement there. Another thing that I want to highlight is custom fields. So this is something that's been in sort of a beta group for a while, but we're now bringing out more widely. And so what this allows you to do is it allows front-end users, people who don't have the ability to write SQL and don't have the ability to write LookML, they don't have back-end access. It allows them to go beyond what's exactly in the model that's already been defined by their analysts. So, if I'm looking at a data set of shark attacks and I want to get a count of how many species there are in the shark attack data, I can do that with just one click, even though that was not part of the model. And I'll show this live. And then I can reuse that, that same idea of reusability that's so core to LookML and the way that Looker does things continues with these custom fields. And so it gives you the ability as a front-end user to sort of define things on the fly, to still have the ability to share them with your colleagues, to reuse them to build more complex metrics. And then if you find something that's really valuable, providing value, it makes it really easy to sort of give it to an analyst and say, hey, I don't have backend access, but can you add this to the data model because it's actually providing us a lot of value. Moving right along, Looker 6 also implements our fastest dashboards ever. So comparing the same dashboard load from Looker 5 to Looker 6 is actually twice as fast. That's a big help. Another thing that'll be really interesting to larger customers who are managing larger implementations with lots and lots of LookML files is we're constantly improving the way that we use Git and version control in our product. And so a big improvement in Looker 6 is the ability to better organize all of those files, to put them in folders and see exactly what's going on there. Another thing that administrators and developers will love is the ability to set permission levels all the way down to the field. So if you've got different levels of users, and some of those people should have access to email addresses and some shouldn't, you'll now actually be able to define that on the field using user attributes to sort of say this group of users can see email address, this group of users can't see email address, and better control who has access to your data, and particularly in a world of privacy concerns and GDPR and all of those, we know this is really important to our customers, so that's why we did it. Another thing that we're first rolling out in Looker 6 is this idea of data validation. It's really a tool that an idea we're borrowing from software developers who use testing, unit testing, to really make sure that the software is working the way that they intended and that they didn't break anything. And we're really bringing this to the data world. Saying, you might have a value for revenue last year that and you want to make sure that no changes you made to the data model, messed up that value, that value stays constant. And so you can implement a unit test in LookML that say, hey, when I tell you, I want you to check all these values against these known metrics and make sure that they stay the same. Or you can say, this has to return a date, and that date should be this year. And if it's not, tell me something's broken, because that was working and now it's not. So it makes it easier to catch errors earlier. Another big improvement that didn't render quite right in this software is we're now up to 47 dialects and counting, and the latest one, the mystery dialect there, is MongoDB. So if you are a user of MongoDB and you want to connect Looker directly to Mongo using their BI connector, you can do that with Looker 6. We also know that security is absolutely essential to our users, and that's why we've continued pressing forward on further certifications, and we're happy to announce our SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. And then, because we know that administrators really want to understand how people are using their Looker instance and how it's working, we've completely revamped the user activity, the system activity dashboards that are built into Looker so that you can better see what's happening behind the scenes, who's using Looker, how they're using Looker, if it's performing well, if it's not performing well, which queries are taking a long time, so that you can better diagnose and fix those. So that's a whole new set of administrator dashboards. We've also made improvements to the API. Waiting for the slides. There we go. To the API, particularly on dashboard endpoints, to give you a lot more tools for managing dashboards. So in Looker 6, a lot more endpoints there. So this is API 3.1, which introduces a whole new bunch of capabilities on the API. And then the final thing, as I rush through this, the final thing I want to touch on before I go to the live demo is just applications. So, we started several years ago with this idea of Looker blocks. And that was all about taking sort of common use cases, common patterns that we saw, and formalizing them into something that people could reuse, giving them best-in-class analytics that were plug and play and could be added to your Looker instance to get you to value faster. And applications are sort of an evolution from that. They give you all of that, but they're fully built applications that are purpose-built for particular use cases, but still retain that customizability, that adaptability, so that you can make sure that you're getting value. It's not just a black box where you have to trust that it works and you can't really do much with it beyond what it does off the shelf. And that also helps with the sort of future-proofing and making sure that as your systems get more complex, as your needs change in the future, the application will be able to flex and change with it. And so from the from the user's perspective, what Looker applications provide is something that, first of all, works off the shelf, doesn't require a whole bunch of setup, doesn't require IT to be deeply involved. They're built to serve a particular type of user in a particular use case. So it is not a generalized tool. It's really for particular types of users and their needs, which allows us to sort of customize that UI and make it much more intuitive for that kind of user. They're pre-populated with reports and dashboards that meet the needs of those user types. And they're really about maximizing value using the functionality that sits in the Looker platform and leveraging that for those kinds of users. So as part of Looker 6 in public beta, we're releasing the Digital Marketing Analytics by Looker application and the Web Analytics by Looker application. And now I'm going to jump over to a couple of quick demos. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the question and answer box, and I will get to as many of them as I can. But for now, let's jump over and screen share. And so here we go. So let's start with those colors that I talked about. Here's a dashboard made with those new palettes, and just to sort of show you what this experience looks like. And there's actually a lot more on the color side coming, but just to show you what is already fully baked and ready to go. This experience of changing these is pretty different than it used to be. I can look at these palettes and see all of these different options very quickly. See that that's probably not the best one, but get a really clear view of my options, as well as customize them if I want to. So just a much nicer experience than previous versions, and we're really happy with this and looking forward to continue to iterate on this. On the custom field side, here's some nice baseball data showing how many games were played each year. And so, I might want to do a little bit of analysis here, but there hasn't been a ton modeled on the games, and so that's okay. I'm going to take this count of games, and without having to go to LookML, I'm actually just going to filter this measure. And I'm going to say, I want to look at high attendance games. So I'm going to say where I'm going to filter this by attendance and say where attendance was greater than 45,000, let's say, and decimal and save it. And now I'm going to run that. And what Looker's done is on the back end, without my having to do anything, it's converted that into a case statement and saying count case where attendance is greater than 45,000. And so now I've got this count, so I can see my high attendance games, and I can continue to iterate and say, well, now I'd like to see that as a percentage. So high attendance. And so I can now take my brand new custom field, reuse it, and divide it by count of all games, save that, and voila, there is my nice thing, and I can show, there's my custom visualization. And all of that done on the front end without having to go to the back end. So really a great tool for both for business users who don't have back end access and for developers who are sort of prototyping and figuring out new things. Just a much faster interface, gives you a lot of new power. Here is a very purple dashboard. And so you can see font is a particular font. This is set as the Lakers theme. As a Lakers fan, I'm not sure I agree about that yellow, but we'll go with it. Let's say I want to change themes. All I have to do here is change to say theme equals UNC, which we've already defined. And voila, there's my nice Tar Heel theme for UNC. So this theming gives embedded customers a lot more power in terms of defining these things to look just like their application. Then on the application side, here's a quick demo of that. So I'm going to get started in the Digital Marketing by Looker application. As you can see, this is a pretty different interface than the normal Looker interface, and this is all sort of pre-built. This is all reports that were in this application from the first time I opened it. You can see a really nice filter interface that'll make sense to a digital marketer, not overwhelming, a brand new way to filter by campaign. And then I can drill down because I'm in my overview, so I could look at Google Ads. specifically and understand what things are happening there. I could look at each campaign and really focus on the different metrics that I, as a marketer, am going to care about. I could even look for suggested optimizations. And so this is giving me suggestions about things, underperforming keywords that I might want to look at, to highlight those and take action on them. And as you can see on the sidebar, this gives us Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, and Bing ads. And so all of this works just off the shelf. Out of the box, you buy the application and we'll have you up and running, in an hour or so with all of this. If you're interested, definitely reach out. We are in public beta and love having customers use this and tell us what's working and what can be improved. And then just to jump over, we can also look at the web analytics application. So this is built really for people who are analyzing web properties. And we can dig in to things in a really flexible way, but it just, again, works out of the box. And so we can, set timeframes, set countries, but in a way that's really meant to be familiar to people who are used to using web analytics tools like Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics. And same idea where it's pre-populated with a whole bunch of useful things like looking at acquisition, looking at behavior, conversions, revenue, and pre-built reports. So these applications, web analytics and marketing analytics by Looker, are both in public beta. And so if you're interested, reach out. And then the last thing that I'll just demo very quickly before I jump over to questions, because I see there are a lot of them, is the new user activity, system activity tabs in your administration panel. So this is a demo instance, so not a ton of super interesting activity, but we can see what kinds of users, how many are view only, how many are embedded, how they're engaging. We can see who's querying and when. We can see, on a content basis, sort of what the stats are at a high level. I'm waiting on that to load. There we go. Okay. So, which types of content are issuing queries, and, what content is the most popular, which explorers are popular, what's unused, so you can identify things that really aren't being used and might be worth removing to declutter your instance. And then we can also look on the performance side to really understand how users are using Looker and how they're experiencing it. Are they getting consistently fast dashboards, as I am not right now? Perhaps I'm in a Wi-Fi dead zone. Understand both sort of what's happening at the Looker level and what's happening at the database level, so that we can better optimize that. There we go. 100% of the dashboards on this demo instance are rendering in under 10 seconds, which is great. The average database runtime in seconds is quite fast. So lots of good stuff happening on this demo instance. You can also understand, if you're hitting the database with a whole bunch of scheduled tasks all at once, and you might want to spread that out. So lots of sort of suggestive, prescriptive help for better optimizing the way that your Looker instance is working. And after that very, very quick run through of some of the features from Looker 6, I'm going to jump over and try my best to answer questions. So we've got a question about when the official release date is. So as most folks who are Looker customers probably already know, Looker releases our standard versions every 4 weeks. If you're on an extended support release, it would be every 3 months. And so assuming you're on a normal release cycle, Looker 6 will start rolling to the earliest customers in a couple of weeks or a week and a half now, and then we'll continue rolling out over the month. So depending on where you are in the release cycle, you will get it, but in 6 weeks at the outside, unless you're on the extended support release. Going to the next question. So this is a great question. What's the difference between a traditional dashboard and an application? So, I think a dashboard is a great way of sort of summarizing one part of your data. And an application is really meant to be more than that. It's really meant to be a whole intuitive experience that presents a user interface that's really meant for a particular type of user. So it's not just a collection of dashboards, although it is that, but it's also, the content that tells you about optimizations that you might want to look into, about how things are performing. But really, because we are building these applications for particular types of users, a digital marketer or a web analyst, we can talk to those people and understand exactly what is useful to them. What we saw was our analysts at our customers were having to do that legwork of going and talking to their digital marketers and understanding exactly what they needed. And they were doing it at customer A and customer B and customer C and customer D. And we said, well, we can do that work once, give you something that's 95% right, and then you can customize the last little bits that you need, but it's already going to make sense to a digital marketer. We can build a UI that really makes sense to those digital marketers. And so that's where these applications came from. Great question. Another question, where can I find detailed API documentation? So API documentation actually lives within your instance because it is specific to the version number that you are on. But you can see sort of generic API docs and as well as pointers to your specific instances APIs. And if you don't have a Looker instance, you can get those sort of generic API docs. Probably the easiest way is just to Google them. Another question. So the question about pricing for the web and digital ad apps. If you're already a customer, reach out to your rep or your customer success person, and they can walk you through how that works. If you're not a customer yet, reach out to us and we will walk you through it. But we are still firming up the sort of pricing and trying to make them, really accessible and affordable so that the marketing department or the web analytics folks can afford these and buy them and bring them in-house themselves. Let's see. Looking for more. So a bunch of those questions. A question about, can customers create internal applications or applications only published by Looker? So for the moment, the two applications are, in fact, published by Looker. We fully expect that partners will start to build their own applications. Some are already sort of walking around the early stages of that, which our customers would then be able to buy on top of the Looker platform. In terms of customers building their own in-house application, you can kind of do that already in the sense that applications are using the platform. They're using all the tools of the platform, the APIs, the iframe embedding, all of those tools, and the folks at our company who are building these applications are really using tools that are publicly part of the platform. So there's no special magic to build applications beyond just sort of putting them inside the tool and making them navigable from there. But if you have specific questions about how that works and what it would take to build something on your own, we have lots of resources about people who have built things very similar to applications that are fundamentally applications for their own internal teams. So reach out to your support person and they will help you access those resources. Another question, is data validation part of the standard package? Yes, I should say that data validation is very much a sort of beta feature. It's something that we're trying to get our hands around because it is a brand new thing really to the world. It's something that data analysts are just starting to think about, which we think is great. But yes, it is part of Looker 6 and no special pricing or anything on that. Another one. Question about what the difference between the Google Analytics block that already exists and the web analytics application. So that's a great question. The Google Analytics block is a little bit less featureful, I would say. It's definitely on the UI side, on the user side, it's more restricted. They use some of the same sort of ideas about how to model the Google Analytics data, which is very complex for anyone who's dealt with it raw. But I would say the application is a much more full-featured experience and gives you a lot more right out of the box. I've got lots more working on them. Let's see. So a question about localization, that's a great question. I didn't go over that. As I said, I could only, in this 30 minutes, cover a little bit of what's in Looker 6, but localization, particularly for embedded use cases, is something that we're very much working on, and we expect to roll out our first languages for full application and data model localization support, and those first languages will be Japanese, French, and German in early 2019. So work has started about 6 months ago on that. A lot of the sort of core architectural work that needed to be done has already been done, and we're getting pretty close just to the translation phase. And then we expect that after those first 3 languages roll out, there will be additional languages that roll out throughout 2019. Great question. Question about modification of applications, customization. So yes, absolutely. We know that every company's needs are different. We know that one size fits all doesn't usually fit anyone particularly well. So these applications are built to sort of flex and be customized as you need it. As I said, they're really just built on the platform. They're using LookML, they're using the API, they're using iframes. And so, there's something that work right out of the box, but allow you to customize them for your particular company's needs. Let's see what else we got. I'm not going to be able to get all of these, so we will definitely take these and answer them out of band offline. So yeah, great question about custom dimensions and measures. Can you restrict access? So yes, absolutely. This is something where you'll be able to give certain people access and not others. We know that this does give people a little bit of ability to sort of go beyond with what's in the model. We think that's great for lots of people, but certainly gives people a little bit of license to make up their own things, and we want to avoid that. Custom features, custom dimensions and measures will always be sort of called out and obviously different than the modeled dimensions and measures. So there's no way that you'll sort of mistake them for blessed certified measures and dimensions. But yes, you can control it on a user by user or group by group basis. And I'm going to take one more before we take these offline, since I know we're already over time. Question about enhanced printing capabilities. So yes, as I said, we've totally revamped the rendering engine. PDFs are lighter weight now. They are searchable. They're much more sort of natively PDF and print a lot better. So definitely something we were focused on. We want Looker to look great, whether it's an email, mobile, browser, or on paper. And so this gives you a lot more flexibility in how you paginate and things like that. And with that, I will thank you all for your attendance and your amazing, great questions. As I said, we will get to these offline and reply to you there. And we will certainly send out the recording of this webinar in case you missed anything. Also know that there are more webinars in this series coming up that will go a little bit deeper into some of these features. So we've got a blog on 6 reasons to love Looker 6 that goes into a little bit more, a blog on how Looker is a platform for data. If you have questions, feel free to email us, and keep an eye on your inbox for information about future webinars that'll dive deeper into these features. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great afternoon.